have 2 more empty seats in the front, and there's plenty of kids in the back that can fill them up.
Okay, guys. We're happy to have Nader with us tonight. I don't know how many of us know Nader. Nader used to serve in this church when he was younger, still younger. He really grew up in this church. How many of us know Nader? Okay.
How many of us don't know Nader?
So we got to know each other. He moved to New Jersey, and then he was helping in Manhattan Church, and we're happy to have him tonight with us with a very interesting topic that's going to talk about. Please feel free to interrupt. I'm sure he's going to say that, not now.
Is there clapping after this?
There are no clappings after the meeting. There are no clapping after the meeting for anyone, because again, it's not his show.
Only when we welcome people.
Good point.
Exactly. Only when
Good point. Good point, Nader. Good point.
You can welcome Nader and not after, because it's not his show. Whatever.
Hey, hi everyone. So, how we came up with this topic was very interesting. Monica, who I guess is the go-to person in regards to setting up the topic and the scheduled day and the meeting time, she was talking about how there's a topic that we haven't we didn't seem to find anyone to touch upon it, but I'll suggest it to you, and if you're interested, then we'll go ahead and give it. So she goes, the topic is brokenness. And so the moment she said brokenness, my heart beat. And the reason why is because, personally speaking, it is something that I have experienced on many levels and on many occasions. So it's something that I could relate to. And if you can't relate to brokenness, God bless, and hopefully you never have to. But if you can relate to brokenness, or if you could think of a time where there was a certain emptiness, or a feeling of hopelessness, or something that you felt you were completely alone in, then this topic is for you, and it's something that I think we could all share in. The length of this meeting, or how short it is, depends on how open you are. And not open in terms of your personal experience necessarily, but of how to have this dialogue in regards to this topic. So, brokenness. What are some causes of brokenness? And brokenness is really a huge topic. So I want to hear from you what you feel are the different aspects of brokenness.
You said positive?
Aspects?
You said positive specifically?
Positive?
Or just...
No, aspects of, what? Maybe I will need to explain further more about brokenness, but your understanding of brokenness, and I kind of touched upon it earlier, a feeling of loneliness, a feeling of hopelessness.
Emptiness?
Emptiness.
Is that part of brokenness?
That's a very big one. Emptiness. Other aspects, or what other experiences in your life, if you've experienced this sense of brokenness of heart, of just kind of your world crumbling around you. Sometimes, what are those causes? What causes you to these things? So emptiness.
Maybe like losing control?
Losing control, big one. Fear is a very good one. And all these kind of delve on our own independence, our own self-reliance that kind of goes haywire, and we're unable to really rely on anyone or anything, and lose hope in ourselves, lose hope in our friends, lose hope in our God. Any other examples?
Insecurity?
Insecurity is huge. Believing in yourself. Confusion, chaos, anger. If I'm moving too much, let me know, because I can't sense it. So I get nervous, I kind of do things. But Any other?
Lost.
Lost. Okay, I felt a feeling of being lost. So all of these different feelings, to the best of my ability, I also came up with some, and a lot of them are synonymous to what you guys mentioned. And the best example for me, aside from my own personal experience, the best example for me to see how God deals with these aspects of loneliness or of brokenness is through the Bible. And so I was able to write down these aspects of brokenness and then find biblical stories to relate them to that aspect. And so we have failures in your relationships, whether it's a romantic relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, whatever, your friendships, acquaintances, your family, parents, siblings, in my case, Dr. Samir's case, your own kids, in your own school and career. If you're way past the college level and you're seeking a job, or if you were in a job and you lost your job, all of these can lead to brokenness. Hopelessness. We have some example of hopelessness in, I won't jump to the biblical story. You guys give me your examples and then we'll focus on what I have prepared. But what biblical stories can you think of that relate to hopelessness? I won't demand an answer now, but go ahead. Samaritan woman. Excellent. Up until she met someone, right? So your name is Pablo? What is it? Anton? Okay. Nice to meet you. Lack of acceptance and love. Who else biblically do we know that experienced the lack of acceptance and love? And again, I'm bringing up biblical stories, but if we've experienced it firsthand, then obviously we know exactly how it feels. Keep that in mind. If you know a biblical story before I continue, and then we'll come back to it and I'll bullet point the different stories. Hopelessness, I'm relating to the story of Job also. Lack of acceptance and love, the story of Joseph with his brothers, and his rejection by his brothers. Lack of faith in yourself and God, and we mentioned insecurities earlier, or loneliness. Lack of faith in yourself and your God. Sometimes God works differently. Sometimes, and I'll pose this question to you, can God sometimes break us intentionally? That's something I want you guys to keep in the back of your mind. And we have a couple of stories also biblically where that will answer that question. Not fitting in also goes back to Joseph with his brothers. Not feeling love goes back to Joseph with his brothers. And emptiness. And a huge example of emptiness is the prodigal son. On emptiness. So those were, from what I gathered, multiple aspects of brokenness. And again, to really go quickly through them, failures in our relationships, school, career, where you're feeling lost, or you've lost your job, or you don't know where you're headed or where you're going. Hopelessness, lack of acceptance and love. Sometimes a broken home, I actually skipped over this one. Sometimes a broken home can lead us into this whirlwind or whirlpool of loss, of brokenness. Lack of faith in yourself and your God, and being broken for a greater purpose, when we said this is possibly God doing it. Not fitting in, not feeling loved, and emptiness. If you have your phones ready and you have a Bible in your phone, I'd like certain people to pick up random verses, and I'm actually going to divide the room into two sides. One side is going to be the biblical character or the biblical person, and the other side is going to be God's response to that person. So on this side we'll have the biblical character, and on this side we'll have God's response. Now before we get into that, I'd like us also to focus on the story of Jonah. can you give me your thoughts on the story of Jonah with the feeling of brokenness or the feeling of loss or emptiness? Or what is it about Jonah that is related to this topic? And Jonah's is interesting because it's not what we think. It's not something that was external, that wasn't inflicted externally on him. It's something that he chose. Anyone can think of that?
I mean, there's like you were saying, like different elements of the brokenness. Different from the other stories you mentioned, just because I think it was for the purpose of a larger purpose, if that makes sense. So his brokenness served others, not just himself.
So Jonah's an interesting case because Jonah was given a mission, and his mission was to save the people of Nineveh, or to announce that, repent so that you could be saved. But Jonah's problem was self-inflicted. His throwing into the ocean and his end in a whale's belly, that was because of himself. His disobedience with God, his lack of, or his stubbornness of not wanting to do what God wanted him to do. That could actually lead to being broken. And that was self-inflicted.
Are you going to answer the question of, does God break us?
Yeah.
Are we going to answer that throughout this thing?
Yeah, I will.
Because I was going to ask you.
No, I will. So Jonah, we know, was actually being stubborn, and he rejected God's mission, or so it started that way. And his end result was God, if you want to say, leading him to the belly of the whale, to the belly of the whale. That was self-inflicted, and sometimes we do that. We do that in our lives. We kind of self-inflict our own brokenness. It's not necessarily something that's external. It's not necessarily someone that hurt us, and then we find ourselves lonely, despot, and just alienated from the rest of the world. But God is also faithful, and God doesn't leave us, just like He didn't leave Jonah. And so the moment that Jonah prayed was when God answered. And it's interesting, in the book of Jonah, God's response is Him talking to the whale to spit Jonah back out. And it says He spit him back out on dry land. So if you think of the imagery, He didn't spit him back on the ocean and then he had to swim to shore. The whale spit him back onto dry land. It's a means of salvation for Jonah at that moment by God. I printed Jonah's prayer because it's a beautiful, beautiful prayer. I printed about 50 of them. I think there's more than 50 people here. I'm not certain. So just grab one and pass it around. And it's not for us to read now. You could read it when you get home and before you go to sleep, or in these moments of brokenness and these moments of being down. It's a very uplifting prayer. And if it wasn't for this prayer, God wouldn't be responding to Jonah the way He did. So that's the story of Jonah. The next three biblical stories, there's...
So Nader, can we say that even if I do something wrong and that causes me to be broken, God will still look after me?
I don't know.
What do you think, guys?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I did something wrong, and as a consequence of that, something happened bad to me. But there's still chance for me to go back to God, and God will still work with me to bring me back to the original stance. That's possible?
Does it depend what you did?
No, of course not.
But if you're
Sure.
Nader is yes, Nader.
No, I was just gonna say, doesn't it kind of like depend on how badly or like you want to get back to that stand?
You want to get back to what?
Like how bad you want to get back to that stand?
To that?
Like to being back to normal or that.
So if I want to be back to normal, that's possible. No, I think we all fall into this يعني dilemma. I did something wrong and something bad happened, because that's exactly what happened with Jonah, right? He did not obey God, so he was thrown into the sea. But there is, يعني we feel that خلاص ما دام I did something wrong and this is the consequence of the brokenness, as Nader is saying. The brokenness happened because of my own personal doing. Is there hope in that? يعني if there is a hope, well خلاص I'm doomed to be lost. فاهمين قصدي؟
Yeah.
ولا should I speak in French?
No, please no.
Comment ça va? Go ahead.
We actually kind of spoke about that last Sunday, in the sense of it doesn't just happen from one instance. It happens. Brokenness is a cause of like a kind of a lifestyle. Like I feel broken after I repeat a sin or many sins many times. I don't just randomly wake up one day and feel broken.
Is that hope?
Yeah.
Say something bad happened because of that.
Well,
That's what Nader is talking about.
I think we, like from the Bible and just from our own lives, we know there's always hope and we know Christ is always with us. But I think the important thing is just to understand that sin doesn't have to weigh you down, and you can like immediately repent right after sin. I don't think we get that concept of I sin, but I have to ask for repentance when I'm really down. No, you don't. You can ask for repentance right away, and you can make sure you don't get broken. I think it's easier to solve a problem before it happens than to solve the problem after it happens.
That's the point. Even if it happens, there is always a way out. Yeah, and sometimes we feel, I did something very bad, I lived very bad lifestyle, and consequences happen because of that, so خلاص, there is no hope for me to come back. I think the story of Jonah tells us that even if the brokenness is self-inflicted, there is a way out if you want.
Even if you're in the deep ocean, even if you're swallowed up by a whale, there's a way out. And God always uses that way out. And again, with the prayer of Jonah, there is so much power in it, because if you read it and you've experienced brokenness, you understand exactly what he's talking about. And that's why I love that prayer, and that's why I wish everyone would get it. And I know I could tell you just go to Jonah chapter 2 and read the prayer, but it's a lot more effective if I printed it for you so you could have it in your pocket, and then at some point you read it. Go ahead. What's your name?
Nardine.
Nardine.
Yeah. So you keep saying like there's always a way out if you want, but what if you get to the point where you don't want it anymore? Like what if you're so wrapped up in sin and you're really enjoying your new lifestyle, or maybe not necessarily enjoying it, but you just like now like the thought of like church and coming to the meetings and all that stuff just becomes tedious. And this is speaking from my own experience. Like I've definitely been in that position a lot of times. So my question to you is, how do you bring back that desire again? Like we always focus so much on like, we know that there's hope, like we know it, like we also know that, like, but do we really know it? Like, do we really know that like life with God is better? Like, have we seen it? Like, do we see it in the lives of people who are so wrapped up in church and who really love Christ and who do all the things that we're supposed to do? But do we see like God is really like changing their lives? Like sometimes I feel like that's what like we need to, I don't know. But my question is, how do you bring back that desire to want to be with Christ?
So this is a different topic than brokenness, because this is living a life outside of what we strive to attain with God. Okay, this is where, me going clubbing, me going drinking, me going out, me hanging out, having relationships is great, and it's wonderful, and it's not at a stage where I'm feeling helpless or hopeless. I can't experience that when I'm in the club. I'm not gonna see that when I'm with my friends. I'm not, and what I mean by friends is friends that are not building me up, per se. If that's why there is it doesn't seem like it, but there is a certain, if there is brokenness, I want to relate it correctly, because I understand your definition of brokenness in this situation. That's if someone was looking at it and saying that's a broken lifestyle. But for the person in it, they're not experiencing brokenness.
So then, do you have to wait till it gets to the severity of real brokenness, where you feel like there's no like?
Sometimes,
Like, do you have to wait till that happens? Like, there's.
if you don't know that you're waiting for it, you don't know. I mean, that's what I'm saying. If you're in it, it's not something that, why, why haven't I reversed my ways? You have to come to that realization on your own. If you're in it, I don't want to say you have to wait, but you have to come around to it. You know what I mean? Because it's self-conviction. And again, it's not that God is absent. He's absent to you. He's absent, and I'm saying you loosely. I'm saying if you're in that position, to you, God doesn't exist. He's present, and He knows, and He sees, and He's there. But that's the difference between brokenness. Tonight's definition of brokenness is when you are at that point where you realize he's not. There needs to be more of Him in your life. That's the point of brokenness. That's the definition for tonight. But that thing of feeling blasé and everything is blah, and I don't need to come to church, or I'm having a better time with my friends on a Friday night in club, whatever. It's a dangerous area to be. But God leads us, I think, also to that point of brokenness, and that's why in the next few examples we're going to see that. So there is hope, and because I understand your question completely, but it's another form of brokenness. The brokenness you're talking about is someone who's lost, really, who doesn't know God exists, or who doesn't even think about that.
I usually think of the person who feels that way as the paralyzed person who's spiritually paralyzed, not in a physical sense. That person is spiritually paralyzed. Cannot control his actions. Cannot go and ask God to heal him. And then I remember the story of the four friends who all felt God was paralyzed now. And it says when Jesus saw their faith, it said when Jesus didn't see his faith, when Jesus saw their faith, He healed them. So this is the effect of, the church, your friends. Sometimes I'm unable to get closer to God, and I don't know where I'm going. This is the church is your friends.
Yes.
I like what Paula says, because it takes us back to the effect of prayer in other people's life. Because when you reach Tarjeen's situation, the situation that Tarjeen is talking about, I think, sorry, I corrected myself.
It's so real. It's so real.
There are two options. It's either your friends will have an impact on you, pray for you until God reveals Himself to you, and that's the importance of our prayer for each other. Back to our topic of prayer, and the friends will reach out to you. Okay? Or that's one way, and this way they're going to bring you to God. Or the other way, unfortunately, when you hit rock bottom, you're going to come back to God. And you don't want to be in this position.
Okay.
I think a character in the Bible that brings both definitions of brokenness together would be the Samaritan woman. She was basically an adulteress, right? So however bad it gets, that's where she was at, right? With 5 different husbands, she didn't know who was her husband, whatever. But she didn't even go seeking God. God was there. So I think in that position where you're talking about I don't even care. I don't even care. I'm good where I was. She wasn't going out seeking God. But I think in that position, at least be know when God seeks you. At least know when God's there. That's what I would say. She did. She knew that this was the Lord. So if I'm there, I'm gonna allow myself to be oh wow, maybe this is God's message to me, even though I'm chilling.
I think we may be putting the cart before the horse a little bit. I'm glad that we're talking about defining brokenness, because I think our definition of brokenness is very Hollywood. So much so that and not to say it, but everybody in this room could be broken. And the problem is that you don't know it. And you don't know it because your idea of broken is, I'm not lying face down in a gutter somewhere with holes in my shirt and like with like a beard and smell bad and, you know, with like a brown paper bag and a 40. You're like, this is like, I'm broken, you know, a lot of times that I can personally tell you that you're broken, you don't know it, and the people don't know it. And to the point where most successful people around you are actually broken. But from what I've seen, in all these circumstances, you've got prodigal son, you've got Jonah, you've got Samaritan woman. There's so much focus on like, man, that dude was eating pig food. Like, he hit rock bottom. Like rock bottom was pig food. Rock bottom was this dude almost drowning and getting eaten up by a whale or a shark or whatever. Or the Samaritan woman, this chick was going to get stoned to death, like she was going to die. The brokenness wasn't that. I would argue that the brokenness was God's role in that was to put you in a situation where you were able to get out of your way long enough so that you can be aware that you're broken. Unfortunately, it takes getting thrown into these settings where physically you are put in a situation where you cannot distract yourself, where you are left with nothing but your thoughts, with your prayer, with your whatever. You can be in a suit, you know, you could be rocking a Rolex and walking out of a Bentley. Where it comes time for you to hit their point, you can do it look good. You know what I mean? It's just you need to be aware that the same thing is going on. And I think as long as we keep thinking like, yo, I'm looking right. Like I haven't hit rock bottom. You know, I don't have a drug problem yet. You know, I'm still have all my teeth. You know, I haven't hit rock bottom. I think that's even more dangerous than I would argue some of these other guys.
Let me just say something real quick. Mark touched on something really, really sweet. And what it is there is a blessing in being broken. And if you didn't catch it, sometimes God throws you in that pit in order to bless you. And you have to kind of change your perspective about what brokenness means. Again, brokenness is probably the most horrible feeling you'll ever feel. It'll probably be the worst position you'll ever be in. But the moment that happens is the moment where God, I don't want to say decides to bless you, but that moment is where you get blessed by God. I'm not even
I don't think that you're necessarily being objective, but because, okay, like Mark's saying that you're left with no choice but to pray. But how do you know that I'm going to pray? How do you know that I'm not going to get mad at God and be like, why did you put me in this? Like, you're assuming that, like, everyone is going to be at, like, a level that they're going to see the blessing in being broken. But that's not necessarily true. People, they rebel or they get angry and then they're like, like, I just watched a video actually and, like, the girl got raped. So she's cursing God out. But she got raped by her uncle. So, like,
that's a choice. That's a choice that the person makes. You can.
That wasn't her choice to get raped.
No.
That's not her choice to get raped, but it's her choice how to solve the issue. It's the solving of the issue is the choice. So you can choose to curse God if you want, and you can choose to be healed from a broken heart.
In order to make the decision as to how you're going to accept the circumstances, you have to have a certain amount of faith. And you can't just expect me, for example, if I'm atheist, you can't expect me to say, oh, I see God's blessing here. No, I'm going to be like,
Well, let me.
Can I tell you something very important? I have a big example for everybody here about this situation. Joyce Meyer, everybody knows her, a great preacher in America. She has been raped by her dad for many years. Her and her brother. She became, out of this, the biggest preacher. Her brother commits suicide. She's a
It's a choice.
Okay, but I want this to naturally progress. No, we can't. No, I want if we're going to discuss hard topics like this, then we have to answer them naturally. Okay? For this lady to curse God, that is a natural response. Okay? We can, I mean, if you want to be the ideal super Christian, then fine. I got raped, and I'm going to say, thank you, God. That's the ideal Christian, super Christian, whatever. That is not natural. That is not human for us. Okay? We have to know exactly how to react on things, but that is a growing process. That is a growth. That is in your relationship with God. Joyce Meyer, I don't think became Joyce Meyer overnight. Okay? Her brother committing suicide obviously had issues. Okay? We have to build our relationship with God regardless of the circumstance. So yes, she has a choice whether to curse God, to bless God, but we can't just take a snapshot of one moment in someone's life and judge on that person. We can't say, well, she cursed God, and that is the logical response. You know what? Yes, that's the logical response, because where were you? But let's find out 10 years from now how she is. Let's find out 20 years from now. Let's find out what God does in her life. We don't know. We don't know because we're limited. We're not gods. We don't know exactly the progression of life with people. We don't know how God deals with people, with hurt, with anger, with pain. We don't know. Okay? So I would hesitate to. I mean, Uncle is absolutely right that yes, she has a choice. At every point in her life, she has a choice. Every point. But I cannot. It doesn't make sense for me to judge her on that moment that she curses God, because that's not her life in a nutshell. Her life still continues. It still goes through. And we will touch on topics that are close to this. Does anyone have anything? Sure. Lily, go ahead.
I just remember verse 1 in Isaiah 21, verse 18. It said, told by God, come now, let us reason together, says the Lord. So your sins are like scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. So they are red as crimson, they shall be like wool. And the second one is Psalm chapter 51 and verse 70. They talk about the brokenness, and it said the sacrifice of God are a broken spirit, a broken and a contrite heart. Oh God, you will not despise.
Did you guys hear the two verses? The first one was Isaiah, God saying, come now, let us reason together. That scarlet robe, scarlet is the reddish color, I will turn to become as white as snow. Okay? It's a sign of hope. It's a sign of hope. And then with Psalm 50, we know so well, a broken and contrite heart, oh God, you will not despise. Right? So, again, a sign of hope. And we will touch on these verses. Anyone else have anything to say, or will John go?
I'm sorry. I just want to go back to Jonah. I see it in a different way. His disobedience and struggle and being swollen by a whale or shark, whatever.
Fish.
Was partly because his anger towards God, because he saw that God goes to people that don't know him at all, and he has the Jews and God's people, and he doesn't listen. He thought that God doesn't care about his own people, and he's going outside and searching for people that don't even know him.
Right.
So his brokenness, or part of his brokenness, was because he couldn't understand God's plan or God's will, or he couldn't understand God and what is he thinking, like why is he doing
Yes,
this?
this is another form of brokenness. Because the brokenness I'm talking about is when he's in the belly of the whale, where he realizes he sinned, where he's asking for repentance. That's the brokenness I'm talking about. The brokenness you're talking about exists because he's broken with his thinking. He's broken with what his mission is as a prophet. He's broken. He doesn't know. And so, again, I want us to continue to realize that there's many forms of brokenness. The brokenness I'm talking about is that moment where, again, rock bottom. For some people, it's being homeless and not having a shelter or anything. Alcoholism. At the moment of your repentance. There's many aspects of brokenness. There's a brokenness of just, again, Jonah not knowing what his mission is in life, and being disobedient and stuff. But the brokenness we're talking about tonight is, to use Jonah as an example, him being in the belly of the whale at the bottom of the sea. And you're going to see this theme consistent throughout the Bible, that for whatever reason, people land in pits in the Bible. People are found in the bottom of the ocean. People are found at the bottom of a pit. In the Psalms, David always prays, out of the depths I cried to you. Out of the pit, you called me out. So that pit, or that depth, or that bottomness is very relevant in our life, and it's very obvious in the Bible.
Do you want to keep going? Can I ask? Do you want to keep going? Can I ask the question?
No.
Do you have something to say? You gonna say
Oh
something?
yeah, no, I just wanted to ask if pride
Louder.
could be an aspect.
Louder.
Oh, I just wanted to ask if pride could be an aspect of brokenness. You know, taking God's
Pride
like
is a
grace.
form of brokenness. Again, it's not where you hit rock bottom. It's a form of being a broken person.
I guess I was more thinking about thinking, oh, instead of God protecting me with all these things, like, no, I protected myself. I'm invincible. You know, like nothing can ever happen to me.
Well, that's the thing. At some point, you're going to reach the brokenness we're talking about tonight, where you're not relying on God and you're relying on yourself. And I have made this makeshift graph where our spiritual life, if it was like this, would be awesome, but it's not. Okay? And if it's like this, is wrong. If it's like this, this is an XY graph. So if it's like this, this is ideal. This is where we want to be. But at the same time, it's not just like this. It's like this, right? So I kind of liken this graph to dependence on God, dependence on myself. Dependence on God, dependence on myself. Dependence on God. And so kind of that's where you're talking about. If it's all about pride, you're going to land down here. If it's reliant on God, you're gonna be up here.
But what if I die when
This is
I'm
a very
in that
simple graph, but
hole? What if
Sorry,
I die
what?
when I'm in that hole?
you're not. You're not because we have a consistency in the Bible that tells us that's not going to happen. And I could assure you that. The Bible is very clear to show if you are faithful with God, you are not going to be at the rock bottom. He's not going to take you when you're at rock bottom.
Because he's good. Remember.
Do you think Christ was broken on the cross?
So I was going to end this topic with saying,
Which is now.
Spoiler
I was
alert,
going
bro.
to end this meeting by saying that we've addressed the brokenness of ourselves, but we haven't addressed the brokenness of God, and that is something someone else could tackle at some point. Because I believe at some point when Adam and Eve sinned with the fall, with Noah's Ark, there are many aspects to also, and I mean it loosely termed. I mean God isn't a broken, being, but there is. It's a great question because yes, I feel that if it wasn't for Him feeling that brokenness, and if you want to understand what that is, read the book of Hosea, and it's a very, very direct story about God being broken. So that'll be for another time. Continue? Okay, so our next biblical reference, and we kind of touched on it, was the prodigal son. And Mark actually talked about eating the swine, the food of the swine. And so I asked you guys to open up your Bibles or your phones. So I want this side to open up Luke 15. And I want this side, Luke 15, verse 18 and 19. And I want this side to open also Luke 15. Well, actually, all right, no, we'll keep it as. Okay, I'll continue to ask you. Also Luke 15, verse 18, 19. But you guys are gonna tell me the Father's response. This side is gonna tell me what the Son said, and this side is gonna tell me what the Father said of the prodigal son. Okay, so we know the story of the prodigal son. What was his main issue? What made him leave his house? What was the problem?
Got too greedy.
Greed?
Pride.
Huh?
Pride.
Pride.
He took things for granted.
Took things for granted. Love of self. He wasn't satisfied. Or he wanted other pleasures. He wanted other things to satisfy him. And we take that as him not being happy in his father's house at the end. So Luke 15, verse 18. Can someone read? Michael?
I will arise and go to my father and will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you.
And 19.
And I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.
This was the moment that the prodigal son hit rock bottom. Right? This was the moment that he realized he spent all his money. He went to work. After he spent all his money, he went to work as like a grazer or something. And even then, he didn't have enough money to eat, and he was actually willing to eat the food of the pig. So this is the moment that he comes to himself, and he hits rock bottom. And then we see him heading back home. And I want you guys, I'm sorry I didn't get the exact verse, but with the father's response, it says, but the father said to his servants. Sorry.
What do you want me to read?
But the father said to his servants.
Verse 22.
Oh, verse 22.
But the father said to his servants, bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet.
Okay. So you see the dialogue. The moment you hit rock bottom, and God and that person says, I have done wrong. I was actually better off. I know God's love. I know His grace. I know everything that was provided for me. And right away, the father says, but the father said to his servants, bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet. And then it also goes into the fatted calf being slain and all that. And what he was going to eat as the food of the swine, he ends up eating the fatted calf.
Just to be like devil's advocate for like a moment.
Louder.
Just to be like devil's advocate. Technically, like when Nardine was explaining being like broken, or like when Mark was saying like you're in a gutter basically, like face down, you don't know where to go at this point. The Bible makes it seem like he like snapped his fingers. He finally came to himself. Like I'm in a gutter right now. I'm just gonna turn around and say, God, I need your help. I believe it and everything, but it doesn't happen that quickly. Like it makes it. It's like an illusion. Like for me, I felt like kind of like an illusion, because when we go through this in our daily life, and you're like waiting for it to happen, and then that's when like the servants and the priests and the church tells us, oh, be patient. But when you're that broken, I feel like in this case, he didn't make his son work to get back to it. You understand? Like you get what I'm saying? Like you want immediate gratification for finding your fault. So I was just wondering.
Is it a response or a question? Okay, go ahead.
I was just thinking about this. Like, of course, everyone felt broken. And recently, I got diagnosed, and I was so upset because, like, I studied so much, right? Anyway, so I was like, and that just like there was like a whole bunch of events that happened, and I was like, I hate life right now. So I wasn't willing though to give up certain things. He was willing to give up everything. He gave up everything, and he was like on his hands and feet, literally. Like, I'm done with everything. He gave himself up. If you're not willing to give yourself up and you're still holding on to something, you're not going to get everything.
But he got instant gratification. That's what I'm saying.
He had
No,
choice.
it was.
Yeah, he didn't give up much. What did he give up? The food of the pigs? Like what?
No. But that's not fair. Also, because what he was giving up is not a tangible thing. It was pride.
Right.
It was, I just told this guy, dude, kill yourself. Give me some money. I'm going on spring break. Kill yourself. I'm done with you. And now he's coming back literally on his hands and knees and saying, I was wrong. Can I work for you? It's different.
It's not instant, by the way. And actually the prodigal son said what? He said, I'm going to go back home not to get back what I was. I'm going back home to be a servant. I'm going back home to be a hired servant. So what happened after that? He didn't know that. That wasn't something that he had in mind. My dad's going to take me back he killed off his father. When he asked for money, he said, give me your inheritance. Inheritance comes after someone dies. So the moment he said, give me your inheritance, it means you're dead to me. It's done. But now the instant gratification, that's us living in this world. That's us pressing power on the remote and the TV turns on, right? Waiting on God is another lesson to talk about. And that was something I learned from Uncle Samir years ago when I used to be in his Sunday school. So waiting on God is actually a great topic to have. And that patience is in itself a virtue. It really is. But I don't believe with the prodigal son that's what happened. I think with the prodigal son is he starved, he hungered, probably got lost his weight. I mean, I don't think things happened that quick. I don't think he was able to get a carriage ride back home. He couldn't afford that. So things, again, progress. Yes, the Bible may say from verse 15, but this was what? Verse 18 and then verse 20. So yeah, it does seem too quick, but I don't think that was the case, but it's because the way we read it.
I was just going to say, we drive here 20, 30 minutes to church after, we sin trying to come back to God or whatever, This dude probably traveled for a month to go back home, fighting his pride every day, walking, homeless, starving, fighting his pride every day to not turn around and be like, you know what, I don't want to go back to my father. I don't want to tell him I messed up. I don't want to tell him I lost everything like a bum and, then end up working for him. So imagine doing that for a month, traveling by yourself, fighting your own head. I drive myself crazy sitting through a 3-hour class. I can only imagine,
Yeah, so I don't think it's as it seems like it because it is verse 18 to 20. Mina?
I think part of the reason why he went back to his father is because he knew that his father loved him. And I think that sometimes the problem with us is that when we come back to God, we don't necessarily believe that we're actually forgiven. So we never do fall into the same problem. So I think it's not just a matter of gratification. I think it's understanding that he's already accepted you, what's wrong from you.
I want to get to the next story because I know it's 10 o'clock. It's getting close to 10. But we started after 10, so I have that to 10. We started after 9. Sorry.
I just want to ask about why the father that asked sometimes wait, sometimes not wait. Some work prayer and some work pray and God responds very fast. Some will need to pray longer. But at home, first one just wait. I think God, when I pray, God always responds. But now I think that I need to be patient and patient. My problem is if you are just a baby, 1 or 2 years old, why you cry? Your parents will immediately get you wrong and beat you or something, or hug you or something. When you are a child, like 6 or 7 years old, you say, Mom, I like this one, can you give me this one? Mom say no, and you feel rejected, so you cry. But she said that's another reason, because she knows what you really need. You need to use knowledge or read a book or study, do exercise, not a
And something just to touch on the whole, how long it takes for God to respond. We know he said what? Knock. Knock and it shall be opened.
Ask and you shall seek. Seek and you shall. You seek and you shall find. Ask and you shall receive.
Okay, say it louder so everyone hears. I know everyone knows this, but I want you to hear it.
Different verses.
Say it. Knock and ye shall.
And knock and it will be open for you.
Ask.
Ask and it will be
There is that no, you cannot just say it. There is a reason for the.
Okay, no, not that.
There is a reason for
that's
the.
another
I said
question.
that. You start by asking and then.
Okay.
It's not.
Asking, no.
مش وقته.
Asking is not.
But,
I know.
and this is kind of, this is the way I look at it. Ask, seek, knock, and it will be answered, found, right, or given, and open. But he never said when. He never said when, and you have to remember that. He didn't say he's going to give it to you right away. Right? That's his promise. So you have to give God time, even though we don't have much of it. But let God do his thing, and he will respond. But he never told you right away. He never said that. Okay, next story is the story of Job. Okay, and Job is an interesting case because Job is something that he didn't wish upon himself. It wasn't self-inflicted, and it wasn't something that even his friends caused on him. They didn't hurt him. It was something where he himself was broken, and broken for a bigger reason. So what happened to Job? The first two chapters tell you everything. In the first chapter, God took away all his possessions, and it counts what he had: the ox, the cattle,
Children.
his family, his children. It tells you by number. It's very amazing how accurate it is with the numbers. In the first chapter, all his possessions are gone, and his family, except his wife. In the second chapter, physical infirmities. So chapter 1 occurred, and God said, you know what, God, you gave me, and now you're taking away. That's okay, right? And we should learn a lot from just this one chapter. He gave and he took away. And then chapter 2, it's the devil that gave him boils from head to toe. So he gave him physical infirmity. And at the end of chapter 2, his wife goes, you should really curse God and die. This is a hopeless person. Okay? So now this side will be Job, will be the person who hits rock bottom. And this person, it's actually not even rock bottom, but it's Job's realization. And this is chapter 42, verse 5, if you guys can turn to it. And on this side will be God's response, which is also chapter 42, verse 10 to 13. So who's got Job on this side?
Luke.
Bob?
Fellas?
I have heard you by the fear of the years, but now my eyes see. Therefore I pour myself in repentance and dust and ashes.
Okay, so Job, now, he always heard of God, but now through his calamities, through his loss, through his experience, now he sees God. And he repents. Okay, this was Job's moment of realization. And what is God's response on this side? Yeah.
And the Lord restored Job's losses when he prayed for his friends. Indeed, the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before.
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry to cut you off. So, starting from verse 12, every number you see in chapter 1 was half of that, exactly half of them. So when you read 14,000 sheep, chapter 1 tells you had 7,000 sheep. So it's really poetic in a sense of the way it starts and how God blesses at the end. Continue, sorry.
And all his brothers, all his sisters, and all those who had been his acquaintances before came to him and ate food with him in his house. And they consoled him and comforted him for all the adversity that the Lord had brought upon him. Each one gave him a piece of silver and each a ring of gold. Now the Lord blessed the later days of Job more than his beginning, for he had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 female donkeys. He also had 7 sons and 3 daughters.
Okay. So again, I wanted to show you again. Job hits rock bottom, and then God answers and blesses.
What if I don't want to get those? I just want that.
What if you don't want?
I don't want to go through all this misery to receive double whatever.
So Job
I don't
again,
have
this
any
is
kids.
Job is not. We went through what? We went through Jonah, which was something that was self-inflicted. So he kind of chose to go through that,
Yeah.
right? We went through the prodigal son. He chose to go through that, right? We went to Job. He didn't choose to do that. This was something that was not something that Job wanted. This is
God
not
allowed
something-
it.
Huh?
But God allowed
But
it.
God allowed it. And so that answers our earlier question of, does God sometimes break us? And the answer is yes. What do you feel about that? What do you think about that? Go ahead.
I think God is always calling, like, for you to reach that eternal life. Like, for example, with Job, when he says, like, first I heard you, but now I see you.
Yeah.
So, God knowing how to
perhaps reach Job, allowed this stuff to happen, with the final goal in mind, which is eternal life, salvation.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Louder, sorry.
The Sermon on the Mount says, blessed are those who persecute righteousness. Like, you have to be persecuted, you have to go to the sea, you have to go through substance. Now, you don't just get things like
Easy.
easy.
Yeah.
You don't literally see everything. Even if God loves you to the point that He doesn't want you everything for you. And if He does everything for you,
You're not gonna appreciate it, for sure. But again, I wanted to show you that with Jonah, it was something he caused on himself. With the prodigal son, it was something he caused on himself. With Job, it was something that was caused on him without him wanting it. And then also we go back to Psalm 50, another verse in Psalm 50 about being broken. And it says, make me hear joy and gladness, that the bones you have broken may rejoice. Who's you? Who is this told to? Make me hear joy and gladness, that the bones you have broken may rejoice. So we pray that, and that's this again, and this is why Psalm 50 is a wonderful verse, because it touched on brokenness from two aspects. And my last biblical example, and then we're done, is the story of Joseph.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Mina, please?
Yeah.
The brokenness of Job, the goal of it is not to give him double. The goal of it is to see him instead of just hearing by him. And that's the verse that you read here. It's the giving double or not giving double, that's not the reason for the brokenness. The reason for the brokenness in Job's story is to lift him up from the level of hearing to the level of seeing. Even if you don't care about giving double or single or whatever, that's not the whole point.
No, that's the
that's
blessing.
extra.
That's the
That's
blessing.
different.
I promise I didn't know.
Sure.
Seriously. I'm not even kidding. That was great.
Okay, Joseph, last, but again, I am within my hour, because we
You have,
started.
2 more minutes.
All right, 2 more minutes. So Joseph. Joseph is what? What is Joseph a victim of? Tell me what Joseph is a victim of.
Envy.
Envy?
Other people.
Very good. Envy of his brothers? Huh? Joseph is a victim of...
He was a brat.
He was a brat, yes. Okay. Okay.
A brat.
I would have thrown him in a
Or just having no
With the
self
coat. With the coat.
no self-awareness.
And the dreams.
Thrown him on the
But he was honest. But he was honest.
I would have punched him in the face.
What is wrong with being honest?
What? You get punched in the face.
Okay.
You get thrown in a well.
What else? What is he a victim of? Temptation? Yes. When was he tempted?
Potiphar's wife.
Potiphar's wife. Okay. Anything else? Anything else? Betrayal, also by his brother. His brothers were horrible. So yes, and I have victim of rejection, also by his brothers. Bullying by his brothers. And this is also being broken through your relationships. Slavery. Again, with his brother. Now, what do we know about Joseph? He was thrown in a pit. The pit is synonymous throughout the Bible. And this we find in chapter 37, if you want to look at that. And he was sold as a slave. The funny thing about the slave story is we think that the brothers sold Joseph. Is that true or not? Did the brothers sell Joseph as a slave?
No.
Huh? Yes or no?
No. He was given.
I'm only
cheaper
saying
than a
this
slave.
because I learned it tonight when I was coming across like that.
He was given without a price.
Okay. Joseph was actually thrown into the pit, and when they were conspiring to sell him as a slave, the Midianites came over, took him out of the pit, and sold him off as a slave. So his luck is done. Okay? Joseph is one heck of a story. Yeah.
His older brother was going to take him out and then bring back.
His older brother wanted to take him out.
So it wasn't like his brothers were selling him.
One of his brothers. So he had 10 other brothers, right? Okay, so that's another thing. Sold as a slave, and he was sold by the Midianites for 20 pieces of silver. And then the brothers came, looked in the ditch. He wasn't there. He was gone. So it's a really interesting story. Sold for 20 pieces of silver. Also, Potiphar's house. What happened? Huh? I can't hear you guys at all.
What?
You guys
Where's Mariam, by the way? Because this is the topic on rape over here. What is it?
You guys, the wife accused him of.
Okay, Potiphar's wife accused him of rape, and then he was convicted of rape, and he didn't do it.
He didn't do it.
He didn't do it. Okay. But then later on, we learned of his elevation, of him being raised up. And again, now we're going to switch sides again. On this side, and it's interesting because here we don't really see God, quote unquote, responding. Actually, God speaks through Joseph. It's really interesting. Again, I tried to look for that dialogue between, Joseph reaching bottom, which really didn't happen, it wasn't something he did on his own, and then God responded. So on this side, I want you to turn to Genesis chapter 50, verse 15 to 18. We're almost done, guys. So. And on this side, also Genesis chapter 50, verse 19 to 21. Okay, so let's start with this side. Who's ready to read? Verse 15, 1-5. You read? Loud, please. Okay, we have the Bible open or on.
When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, "Perhaps Joseph will lead us and may actually repay us for all the evil which we did to him." So they sent messengers to Joseph, saying, "Before your father died, he commanded, saying, 'Thus you shall say to Joseph, I beg you, please forgive the trespass of your brothers and their sin, for they did evil to you. Now, please forgive the trespass of the servants of the God of your father.' And Joseph wept when they spoke to him. Then his brothers also went and fell down before his face, and they said, 'Behold, we are your servants.'"
Okay, so again, it's not personal to Joseph because Joseph, regardless of where he was, as down as he was in the sense of he had faith in God. His relationship was that secure. Okay? So another response, verse 19 to 21, whoever has it open. Loud.
Joseph said to them, "Do not be afraid, for I am in the place of God. But as for you, you meant evil against me. But God meant it for good in order to bring it about as it is to save many people alive. Now therefore do not be afraid. I will provide for you and your little ones." And he comforted them and spoke kindly.
Okay, so Abu Antonis loves this verse, and he mentions it probably every time he talks, where Joseph says, "Do not fear, for am I in the place of God? As for you, you meant it evil, the throwing of the pit." And then he was led to Potiphar's house, and that wasn't their fault, but consequences keep happening to him, or all these issues keep occurring. And then he says, "But God meant it for good." God meant you're throwing me in the pit for good. God meant my slave sell for 20 pieces of silver for good. God meant me being accused of rape for good. And God meant me being convicted for rape for good. This is really, and it's a progression, it's a relationship, it's a building up in our relationship with God. But this is the ideal relationship we really should seek to attain. Brokenness could be a blessing. And that's why this topic is such an important topic, because there is hope. God uses things. That same whale that he used with Jonah was the same whale that saved him and put him back on the dry land. Okay? God uses these circumstances in our life, whether to teach us, build us, heal us. Again, brokenness does not mean an end. It doesn't mean an end. And that's really the topic for tonight. I want you to continue to seek hope. Don't lose hope. I know we all have personal stories of our low points, and we probably all have personal stories of our ways that God blessed us and got us out of. And then I do have one final thing to read. It's Jeremiah chapter 18, verse 1 to 5. And that's what we're going to end with. And I just have a real real quick YouTube clip to show while we're praying, just to meditate on. It's not going to have sound, and I just want you to meditate on it. And if anyone wants to pray, you can pray, but I'm not saying a word. I'm not praying.
The book is out.
But I want you to turn to Jeremiah chapter 18, verse 1 to 5, please. You got it? Loud and clear, please.
The word which came to Jeremiah from the Lord, saying, Arise and go down to the potter's house, and there I will cause you to hear my words. Then I went down to the potter's house, and there he was, making something at the wheel. And the vessel that he made of clay was marred in the hand of the potter.
Okay. What does marred mean? Does anyone know what marred means?
Marred, like Jesus was marred in his face. That expression.
Messed up.
Yeah.
So actually, while the potter was molding, it actually broke apart again.
Marred and appalled.
So reread from marred and then continue. Sorry.
Was marred in the hand of the potter. So he made it again into another vessel, as it seemed good to the potter to make. Then the word of the Lord came to me, saying, O house of Israel, can I not do with you as this potter, says the Lord? Look, as the clay is in the potter's hand, so are you in my hand, O house of Israel. The instant I speak concerning of a nation and concerning a kingdom to pluck up.
Is that verse 5? You just finished it?
That's at 7.
Oh no, that's it. So yeah. So again, when he says, "O house of Israel," put your name there. God is the potter. Your experiences, all of these, he molds into who you are. Okay. Mina brought up in the middle of this meeting how, what if he just takes us at the bottom? What if he takes us where we are done? And we know from these examples, and it's consistent, these are just 4 examples out of many, where he doesn't leave us. He doesn't leave us. And you have to believe that. You have to think about that. You remind yourself of these stories, at minimum these 4 stories. I didn't mention the Samaritan woman, you guys mentioned the Samaritan woman. The Sermon on the Mount. There's many stories out there about God taking us out of that pit, out of the bottom of the sea, out of that brokenness, and he heals us, and he just renews us, and he molds us into this clay pot that ends up being some sort of useful tool in his service. So, and with that, glory be to God forever. Amen. If you have announcements, great, and then if we're going to pray, I just wanted to meditate.
Okay, guys, we're going to be quick. Again, I want to welcome all the freshmen with us.